Hey everyone. And so the question this time is the ego the enemy? And this question was from Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. And so the short answer is no. The ego is not the enemy. And when we treat it as such, we only embolden it. But I know it can be really confusing at time because, it feels like the enemy. It doesn't certainly feel like a friend, right? And then if you even look at the way different teachings have expressed the ego, whether it's, the Bible and the ego being Satan, right? It can feel like something you need to conquer, something that you're going to kind of slay, that you're going to kind of win over. But that's really polarity based thinking. And when you're in that kind of mindset, you're kind of in the field, you're in that same level of consciousness of black and white, good versus evil, all of that stuff. And when you're in it, you're in it, right? Where what you want is to transcend it. And you only transcend something through embodying a higher consciousness, a higher perspective, one of love. So no, it is not an enemy. In fact, and I don't think it's something that happened to us either. So it's important to really understand the origins of the ego. The ego is really like a biological protector, right? We have it because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. And so to have this kind of function, right, protects the human form, helps us to keep alive and remember that, the physical existence is temporary. And so we needed that kind of sense of protection to really help preserve the human experience that we're choosing to have as spiritual beings. Think about if you're in spiritual realm, you don't need to worry about death. You don't need to worry about anything. You're just like a ball of light flying around or something like that. And so it's to have that sense of self so that you can kind of have the full human experience you're supposed to have. So if you're being chased, run, right? A purely biological function. What happened though, and again, I believe this was purposeful. I don't believe it was an accident. I believe it was intended, but I want to describe things in a way that you can understand. But what happened is, it evolved to a sense that perhaps wasn't originally intended. It might be a way to look at it, though I believe it was, but evolved to a dysfunctional degree where all of a sudden it started protecting, it really started believing it's human. Really started believing it's a human being, spiritual experience aside, and that's it. And it started falsely believing that it was solely a human being and not a spiritual being in a human body. So believing it's separate from God, believing it's separate from the universe rather than of God or of the universe. And is this kind of dysfunction grew in this false belief, its sense of protection, if you think of it as like a protective energy shield, move beyond, biological function, like keeping alive, to like protecting this false sense of self. So protecting emotions, protecting feelings, protecting its, fragile mental identity and all the things attached to it and how it identifies itself. So when it felt that anything is attacking any of that, any kind of way it identifies with a false sense of self as this kind of separate thing of just being a human being, forgetting it's a spiritual being, a soul that never dies in a human body, having an experience, then it really starts to feel like the enemy, right? Especially when you start to see and have awareness for what the ego really is, and that it's ultimately an illusion and this very derailing kind of voice of fear in your head that presents itself as the voice of reason, right? So the way to start to kind of think about this, and until you have awareness of the ego, it's going to be really hard to do what I'm going to suggest to do next. But you want to start to have awareness for the ego. You want to start as much as you can be of the objective witness to the ego, having these moments where you're detached from it and you're really just witnessing it. And once you're able to do that somewhat regularly or consistency, well, then, you get to a point where you really like love the ego, into submission, if you will. You love it enough that you bring it back into alignment with the heart. And so when you're viewing the ego as something to like conquer or battle, you're in the polarity consciousness. You're not transmuting, you're not quieting it, if you will. So when you can kind of get to the point that you have awareness for the ego, that it's something you're experiencing, that it's a part of you, but not the full you, and you're really like seeing it, you're witnessing it, then it's to have love and compassion for this kind of lower aspect of yourself, that it's doing the best it can, that it's, you know, protecting you from its very limited, flawed perspective, but that it just comes from a place almost like you would treat an individual who's sick, right? You love it. You don't get mad at them for being sick. And so when you can get to that part, you know, loving this part of you, knowing it's doing its best, it might be misinformed, but it's trying, and really loving everything it's also revealing to you, because it is like a GPS to your own healing. It is showing you stuff to work on, to love, and kind of integrate into a sense of wholeness. So that's my answer. No, it's not the enemy. Love it. And then kind of watch it be brought back into alignment, into a pure and whole state. I look forward to more of your questions. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you would like me to answer any of your other questions, just comment below and make sure to subscribe to my page. Okay, bye for now.